Yeah. Bills Mafia.
Folks, welcome into a brand new episode of the Crowd Assist podcast presented by Trainwreck Sports. As always, Wake here with Merekat, founding father of the Dart of the Day. We all know who he is, DDZ, Trainwreck Fantasy Sports Merekat. First off, shout out Don Brown for letting us use his track for this show. Love that show. You can find his music on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Yikes, off to a great start. Merekat, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. It's draft season. We're just over a week away from the draft. I mean, I can't wait for it. We've been hyping it up. I know you're so into it as me too. It's just a lot going on. There's so many great prospects. There's so many questions. It's just a crazy draft this year, but I think we got a good hold on what we think is going to happen so far.
Yeah, I think I got a pretty good handle on it. It's weird because we were talking before the show. The Bills are no longer in quarterback purgatory. It's the first time in a while that we've been focusing on the later round guys. I put an article up on trainwrecksports.com earlier today about Dayo Odeyingbo, and he is one of my favorite sleepers in the draft. I know you have some sleepers. You're putting out a mock draft soon. Before we get into this first round mock draft, why don't you tell the people what you've been working on? Because you've been working on it for a while, so they should know.
Just get mock draft tomorrow. Just doing the whole first round, entire NFL, not focusing just on the Bills because I'm a mock draft addict when it comes to NBA and NFL. I had one for the NBA earlier this year, so we got like an 8,000 word mock draft going tomorrow. I've a lot of late nights recently, staying up watching tape and doing all that good stuff because there's a lot of prospects in this draft I'm in love with.
Yeah, a lot of prospects too fall in love with Robert Snyder, saying that he loves the Merekat. And draft is one day after his birthday. So happy early birthday, Rob Snyder, great friend of the show. Thanks for tuning in, man. Always appreciated him tuning in on Facebook. You guys can watch on Facebook too and Twitter, and then it'll be live on YouTube for anyone that misses a little bit of this. But we will get right into it here. Basically, how this is going to go is we are using the Draft Network's mock draft machine. We're going to go alternating, picking for each individual team. Then when it gets to the Bills, we're going to collaborate on it, talk about the best fit based on who is there. So, Merekat, your first appearance on the Crowd Assist podcast in this offseason, so I'll let you go first. And I know there's a lot of rigmarole. We don't know who it's going to be. Taken first overall for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The only question with the first overall pick is how long they're going to take to announce it, if they're going to be assholes and wait the whole 15 minutes or just sprint to the podium. It's Trevor Lawrence going first overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's really not much to say on him that people don't already know. I mean, the football IQ, the intangibles on top of the physical traits, the dude's done it all. He's won. He's showed everything. He's the most sure thing quarterback prospect since, probably Andrew Luck, and he's probably more of a sure thing than that. And I hate using the word sure thing, especially in the NFL draft. But there's no doubts with me with Lawrence. Maybe he can bulk up a bit for the NFL. He's a little slender, but I got nothing bad to say about the guy.
No one has anything bad to say about the guy except for that he has a life outside of football, which is apparently a bad thing, according to Twitter.
I'm ignoring all of that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm someone in an NFL team, that doesn't hurt him for me whatsoever. We've been talking about him as a consensus number one pick for 2 years now. So, that you obviously are making the right choice there. And we really won't spend too much time on the next pick either, with the Jets coming in at number 2. I mean, I think we all know that it's going to be Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, second overall. He's the apparently clear number 2 quarterback in the draft. Some people have him as the number 1. I don't have time for that kind of an argument. We had Tyson Rauch on the show 2 weeks ago, and basically the Jets are all but printing jerseys for Zach Wilson already. So this is a really easy decision, but the hardest decision of the draft comes at pick 3, which Merekat is going to give us for the San Francisco 49ers, whether it's going to be Justin Fields, whether it's going to be Trey Lance, maybe Mac Jones. Merekat, what way do you think the 49ers are going to go?
I get a little bit sick every time I see a mock draft come across my feed or something, and I see Mac Jones projected third overall. I like Trey Lance a lot in this draft, but I don't see how it's not Justin Fields. Justin Fields is an incredible quarterback prospect. I like him more than Zach Wilson personally, but Zach Wilson's going too. I agree with you there. He reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson in his play style there. Not we won't go into that, but his play style kind of reminds me of Deshaun. He's a great footballer, and I know people are like, oh, he took a bit of a step back, fumble issues. He's improved on that stuff. He had a great pro day. He just looks great. He looks ready to go. I think in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I don't see how John Lynch doesn't take Justin Fields here. If it's Trey Lance, I wouldn't be mad, but if it's Mac Jones, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of right with you there, like almost in lockstep. I think I lean Lance over Fields, but I think the 49ers would pick Fields over Lance. So just based on, I know the big topic for quarterbacks in this draft is, especially after Josh Allen, you don't draft based off of production, you draft based off of projections. And I think that that's exactly what could lead someone to take someone like Trey Lance over Justin Fields. In this mock, that's not the case. So maybe we'll see that this happens with Fields going first on draft day. For the Falcons, I think this is an easy pick. Matt Ryan's at the end of his career. He needs help. And if there's anything we've seen about Mahomes, about Josh Allen, for young quarterbacks coming into the NFL, they need a good supporting cast. And what better way to give Matt Ryan all the tools he needs to try and do something with the end of his career and set up for your future quarterback than selecting Kyle Pitts fourth overall. He might be the single most talented pass catcher in this draft, and that's not news for anybody whatsoever. If you pair him with even Hayden Hurst there. So those are two good tight ends. Won't call Hayden Hurst a great tight end. But then with Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage even, and Julio Jones, obviously, that's a good offense that would be pretty almost impossible to cover for almost any defense, really. So I think that could be something that sets Atlanta kind of over the top on offense. On defense, still really shaky, but at least where it looks like it might be the end of Matt Ryan's time there, they'll be set up to have a good situation for their future quarterback.
Yeah, if Atlanta stays put here at fourth overall, I think it's Pitts. There's no doubt about that. I think they're definitely a candidate to move back that people really aren't talking about as much as they should be because they need to address that defense. The offense, they don't need Pitts. Obviously, he'd elevate them to another level. Best player available there for sure. Yeah. But, they could trade back into the teams and stuff. A team that needs a quarterback that, if Lance goes third and Fields is still there, or if team wants to take Lance fourth, I think they're a big candidate to trade back. But going to number 5, Cincinnati, this is an easy one. People are saying Jamar Chase, blah, blah, blah. There's a nice little graphic where it's like Cincinnati if they draft Jamar Chase, and it's Burrow just laying on his back still with Chase downfield. Then there's a graphic if Cincinnati drafts Penei Sewell, and Burrow is upright throwing it to his already pretty decent core of wide receivers. I don't see how this isn't the pick. You have to protect Joe Burrow, especially after the injury. He is so talented. He's so good, and that offensive line is terrible. Terrible. Sewell, a great prospect here. People, were saying before back last year that Sewell would be the top tackle taken in this draft. I think that holds true. He's got some, minor mechanical issues, but he's one of those guys that he can just anchor a line and he can block at the second level downfield. He's pretty athletic. I love him here.
Yeah, if Cincinnati, you referenced the graphic that I was going to reference. If they pick anybody other than Penei Sewell with this pick, maybe they have Slater higher as an offensive tackle. Like, sure, that's excusable. But, it's not like the Bengals don't have okay weapons where someone like Joe Burrow should be able to elevate them. If they take anything but Penei Sewell, I feel like they'll have a front office change next year too soon into Joe Burrow's career, which isn't something that Bengals fans would be clamoring for, hopefully, if there was Penei Sewell on the team. For Miami, I think it's an easy choice. The jury is still really out on Tua. I'm not going to write him off like a lot of Bills fans will, despite how awful he looked against us. Like, it was never pretty. Mm-hmm. They need to do something to bring to get just give him more to work with. Preston Williams is a guy Devontae Parker, he's good. He's definitely a good receiver, but he's not the number one receiver that he might have been able to be early on in his career. But Jamar Chase is definitely someone who might be able to step in and at least be a 1B for the Dolphins right now. That's not exactly what maybe Bengals fans would want to see, is the receiver they all want going right after him. But sorry, Bengals fans. Sorry, my friend Sam Utley, if you're rooting for Jamar Chase to go to the Bengals. But I'm not sure how productive he will be with Tua, but at least you can say that Tua will have no excuses going into next year, which is kind of what we're saying about a lot of quarterbacks this year. Sam Darnold in Carolina, possibly Daniel Jones in New York, most notably, probably a lot of quarterbacks with little room for error this year, and Tua is one of them.
Yeah, Tua, they need to up his supporting cast a bit. Not that it's a terrible supporting cast, but Jamar Chase automatically takes him to the next level. He's a game breaker at wide receiver. You pretty much set it all on him. Then going to the next pick, I'm kind of pivoting here. We're doing this live. This is different than my mock draft, so we got to be on our toes here.
Love that.
I could see Detroit falling up, taking DeVonta Smith, maybe even Jalen Waddle, adding to that wide receiver, the core that lost Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones. They need help, but I think they're kind of checking in this year after giving away Stafford to the Rams. They're not playing to win with Jared Goff. I'm saying that they take Trey Lance, who's fallen here to number 7.
Yeah,
I think Trey Lance is more than worth it. I'm not saying he comes in and immediately pushes to be the starter, but that's the thing with Trey Lance, is you want him to kind of ease into the NFL system after playing FCS ball. And Jared Goff's not the worst option in the world, but I don't see that Lions offense being productive at all unless DeAndre Swift is, their workhorse. But when's the last time we've seen that happen in Detroit with a running back workhorse? Right. I think Trey Lance fits a need here, a future need. It's a spot that fits well for him, and they can work around him over the next year or so to keep adding him weapons. They don't need to try to push anything here for Goff, even though receiver makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, receiver would make a ton of sense, but you said it all. They're not going to be a Super Bowl contending team. They probably won't make the playoffs this year. They probably won't sniff the playoffs this year. I think they might have been tied with Houston for the lowest win total for the year, around 5 or 6. They're definitely down there. So yeah, just go put all your eggs into the rebuilding basket. And I think Trey Lance is absolutely the right pick there. I think with the 8th pick, with how the board has fallen now, Carolina is going to do something that the Jets never did with Sam Darnold, and that's give him a chance to succeed. And what they're going to do that is they are going to select Rashawn Slater 8th overall. The Jets, whether it was getting him receivers or getting him, offensive line talent, even getting him running backs, like the Le'Veon Bell signing wasn't great. They never did a lot to put him in a good position. He got hurt a lot. He's been hampered with injuries, hampered with mono. My quarterback doesn't kiss girls during the regular season. I don't know about yours. So I really like Rashawn Slater to step into Carolina, possibly day one left tackle as a rookie, which is not easy to do, but he's athletic and big enough and fast enough to do it. So if they do that, I think Sam Darnold, will he make the playoffs? No, but he'll be playing the first meaningful football games of his career in 2021.
Yeah, and I like Slater there. Huge value, great offensive tackle. This is a great tackle draft, and Slater is definitely the number 2 behind Sewell, if not ahead of him. A lot of people think that. Good thing about Slater, too, people don't bring up a ton, is his versatility. Like, he doesn't have great length. I trust him at tackle in the NFL 100%, but his length's not great. He could probably play like a right guard spot. I think he might have swung a few games there in college. I'm not positive. But going to the next pick, a Denver team that needs a lot. I think that they're not going to take Mac Jones. Might be a popular pick in this spot, but give Drew Lock another year. Let that whole offense be healthy and build up that defense a bit. Take Patrick Surtain II. I love Surtain. He's an absolute monster. And it's just a good spot for them. Their cornerback depth's not the worst in the world. Kyle Fuller, but then across from him is Darby. And then you get into like the Bryce Callahans and stuff. You want someone who can shore up your defense and be a number 1 cornerback in the NFL pretty much off the bat. I think it's Surtain. He's an absolute monster. He reminds me a lot of Nnamdi Asomugha, kind of. Yeah, he could just track down the ball in the air. He knows how to disrupt receivers at a high rate, and he's great at reading the play. I think this is a pick that can shore up Denver's defense, maybe give Drew Lock a chance to get them some wins.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this could be where we see, barring trades, the first two cornerbacks go off the board back to back in a stacked cornerback class. I do think certain is probably it's 1 through 3 is really, really tough because Caleb Farley would be the consensus one if he didn't opt out. But then certain and JC Horn, who I have going to the Dallas Cowboys here, they're right up there with Caleb Farley. They're basically everything you said about certain is right there to be said about Jones. He's someone about JC Horn. He's someone that can come in and start day one in the NFL. And the Cowboys, their defense, if they don't fix that defense, they're wasting Dak Prescott, they're wasting Amari Cooper, they're wasting CeeDee Lamb, they're wasting Michael Gallup, all the people they already wasted a generational offensive line. Now they're going to waste, I'm not going to say Dak is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, certainly top 10. I don't get the Dak hate. Mm-hmm. He's been hampered by just terrible, terrible defenses his entire career. And I really do think JC Horn, even though they might miss out on Patrick Surtain, most likely miss out on Patrick Surtain, he's definitely a good consolation prize in the tank for a good cornerback sweepstakes for this year. Moving into pick 11, what do you have going on for the Giants?
Maybe a little bit of a reach here. So this guy's all over the board. Some people think he'll be available for the Bills at 30. I don't see it. Kwity Paye. My man, I'm a Michigan fan. I'm no bias going into this pick, though. He's a guy who suffers, and this is a term I'll use for a few pass rushers in this draft. He suffers from, a high level of disruption, but a low level of production. Didn't have a great last season. I think he only had 2 sacks, but he's a guy. He's bendy there on the line, even though he's stout, and he gets a nice low pad level. He has a ton of power to upheave guys, but he's athletic enough to track down people in the open field. I think this fits a need for the Giants. Their defensive line's kind of all over the place. All their production comes from Williams. And you saw them this offseason spend a lot of money, put money into that defense. And one person that they went after who they didn't end up getting was Leonard Floyd. And so obviously they think they can upgrade their pass rush. I think Paye's in a good spot here for them. And, it might be a bit of a pick they need to work in a bit, but I think he pays off here. He's a guy who going to be overdrafted, but with a weird defensive end edge rusher class, I think he's a solid choice, even with a lack of production.
Yeah, you said it best. The edge and defensive line class is weird this year. Absolutely weird. We had the one anonymous NFL source, which I love anonymous NFL sources around draft time because you never know what their intentions are or if you mean what you're saying when you're one of these people. But they said that this is the worst defensive line class that they have ever seen. I don't know if that's true. I just think it's a little more difficult to scour through some of these guys, some who opted out, some who have injury histories, like some of the later round guys. But I'm not going to be talking about defensive line anymore. I think Philly is going to invest in offense to try and figure out what they exactly have in Jalen Hurts. I think that that's really the only way that you can go for if you're the Eagles, whether that's a wide receiver, whether that's if somehow Kyle Pitts fell to 12. And taking him, whether that's an offensive tackle, Christian Darrisaw and Elijah Vera Tucker are still on the board. But I'm going wide receiver for the Eagles. I'm going to say they're taking Jalen Waddle. And I really think that this could be maybe not a missing piece for the Eagles, but he's someone who can do what he does in the middle of the field while they have, their other receivers who are better on the perimeter. I think that he fits well into the offense. I think he'll be a good short yardage receiver, and he'll be able to get acclimated with Jalen Hurts pretty well at the beginning of his career. And hopefully, they'll be able to develop together, and he can be a future receiver with Jalen Hurts. And kind of similar to what I said about the Dolphins taking, or about the Falcons taking Kyle Pitts. If Jalen isn't the answer, then you have Jalen Waddle there for another quarterback in the future. And that's something you got to be thinking about when you're drafting a first-round receiver as well. We'll go show you guys a little bit of what we have here because we're just through the top 12 of the draft so far. So Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields being first 3 off the board. Kyle Pitts being the first pass catcher off the board to Atlanta. Penei Sewell, as everybody expects, to the Bengals. Jamar Chase, Trey Lance, Rashawn Slater, Patrick Surtain to the Broncos, J.C. Horn to the Cowboys, Kwity Paye, who I love. I was hoping he would fall so we could talk about him to the Bills potentially, to the Giants, and Jalen Waddle to the Eagles. And before we get to pick 13 from Merekat, I do have to remind you guys we are sponsored by Amherst Ale House. Yes, Amherst Ale House. They've been serving amazing pizza, wings, and beer in Buffalo since 2005, and even more notably, I know Merekat loves them. They're pizza tots, tater tots, and you're never too old for tater tots. That was a fight on Twitter last week, and it's still bothering me. Never too old for tater tots, never too old for dinosaur chicken nuggets. It's a fact. Pizza tots, potato tots with mozzarella cheese, cup and char pepperoni, and you get some pizza sauce on there too. You can order from Amherst Ale House for your draft night spread, Sabres game nights, and every night in between. So call them, place an order, 716-625-7100. That's 716-625-7100. Merekat, who are the Chargers going to take at pick number 13?
I don't hate the idea of a receiver for them if Waddle, is available, or one of the other guys. I don't see the top 2 falling, but Waddle might have a chance. Upgrade that receiving core a bit. You saw what Herbert did last year. Give him more weapons. Let him thrive more. But in this spot with him in here, I'm going with AVT. Sure up their offensive line. A former guard turned left tackle who just showed to be the right move for him. He will excel in the NFL in a run zone blocking scheme, and that's what the Vikings do. The Chargers do, not Vikings.
Yeah.
But so he's got nice quick feet. He's got good size. He might be a guy that gets a bit of not a rude awakening to the NFL, but he's gonna take some snaps to get used to things. And this year, hopefully, camps and everything are 100%. So I like him here. AVT to the Chargers. Protect Justin Herbert at all costs. You don't want to see what happened to Burrow happen to him.
Yeah, exactly. What happened to Burrow? What happened to Josh Allen? His career at the beginning of his career, and even Patrick Mahomes running around for his life in the playoffs. Without an offensive line, even the best quarterbacks in the NFL struggle. And that's something that we have seen, pretty evident over the past couple of years. And I'm kind of sticking on this note. Oh, I have to put the pick in on the Draft Network. Look at that. I guess I do have to work while you're picking. Next up for Minnesota, I'm going with Christian Darrisaw, kind of staying on this wavelength of offensive tackle. He can be a starting left tackle immediately as soon as he comes into the NFL, and he's been a dominant blocker every single year that he's been, he's been a dominant blocker every year that he started for the Hokies. He's got great size, great length. He's extremely mobile, and this is someone who, Kirk Cousins. And it's funny because there are so many quarterback situations uncertain this year, and there's just so many more coming up in the future as well. Kirk Cousins, what's going on with him? How long are the Vikings going to give him to actually get them to the playoffs and do something that they're proud of? It's been a very long time, and people are still kind of waiting for Kirk Cousins to do that. You'll get Christian Darrisaw in here to at least protect him a little bit. I imagine that they'll be moving on from Kirk Cousins sooner than later. So it's good to get that infrastructure of a good offensive line before they might be moving on from him, bringing in a younger quarterback. They could be someone who's taking a quarterback later in the draft this year, someone like Sam Ehlinger, and he could be starting for the Vikings if Kirk Cousins isn't, continuing what he did last year with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, especially Justin Jefferson. Man, is he good. That's a trade that worked out for everybody, is the Jefferson and Diggs trade. Those are the trades you love to see on draft day. No trades coming in here yet, but New England is up on the clock now, and there are a lot of good players still on the board. It seems like this is a fairly typical mock draft, if I would say. Merekat, do you think there's been any surprises so far from what we've done?
Nothing really crazy, not it's out of the norm of it, definitely, nothing that I'd say is just cookie cutter picks so far. A few reaches here and there, a few guys, maybe overdrafted, underdrafted by a few picks. But that's what you're going to get here with New England. It's a weird pick for me because I think New England's going to be pretty active, looking to move up in this draft. But if they stay put and the top 4 quarterbacks are off the board, they're not going to take Mac Jones. You saw Belichick shaking his head at the pro day. I hate Mac Jones. I'm sorry. But I no offense, Mac. You're a great dude. I'm sure.
Sure, you're a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. But no, the Patriots are going to take the best defender in the draft here at 15 if they stay put. It's Micah Parsons. Absolutely. And you've seen Belichick take guys with a lot of character concerns before. Parsons, not adverse to that. We won't get into that, but he's had more than one screw up here and there. And I think that's one of the things that, why he isn't going to be a top 10 pick in this draft, because I think he's a potential X factor level defender at the NFL. He's my favorite tape to watch. You see him, he just attacks wherever the ball is. He's like a missile, and then he bounces around the field. He gets the ball carrier, and he never over pursues. I mean, he's an awesome linebacker piece that you can use in a variety of ways. I mean, his upside is absolutely off the charts. Like I said, you've seen Belichick take shots on character concern type guys like this, get him into shape or just cut them. I think Parsons, if they're here, you can't let Micah Parsons, pass you by.
Yeah, you absolutely can. If somehow he falls to the late teens, like later than 15, early 20s, and we've seen that in some mock drafts, I would be hammering for the Bills to go up and get him. That would be a mean addition to this team, especially if you only have to pay the price to move up 10 picks or so, as opposed to moving up halfway through the first round. So I definitely do like that Micah Parsons pick, not as a Bills fan, obviously, because he's someone, I'm kind of a Penn State guy too. And he's someone that I like when Saquon was coming out, just guys that I was hoping the Bills that I watched in college would be able to get their licks at. Probably won't happen with Micah Parsons, but at least he'll be in the division, so it'll be easier for me to watch him from a fan perspective. That'll be good for me as a fan in one way or another. Yeah. Coming up next, Arizona's on the clock at pick 16. And they're an interesting team. They have probably the oldest wide receiver room in the NFL. So you could make a case that they should take DeVonta Smith if he's here. You make a case that they need defensive help too, though, and that they absolutely do need that. Kyler Murray, he proved he can be an effective quarterback. Don't know if he's a game-changing one. With the weapons they have there, they should be able to figure that out for themselves. So I think they'll go defense. I like them taking Greg Newsome the second, 16th overall, especially after Patrick Peterson isn't there. Their cornerback depth chart is really ugly. Like, yeah, sure. Okay, they have Malcolm Butler, but Robert Alford isn't what he used to be. Byron Murphy Jr., Sean Williams, Jace Whitaker, Chris Banjo. There's someone with the last name Banjo at cornerback for the Arizona Cardinals. That's just not going to cut it. So I'm going with Greg Newsome there. It is a bit of a reach possibly over Caleb Farley, but at this point, it's kind of splitting hairs between whether someone wants to take the risk on a Farley possibly being out of football shape. I don't subscribe to those concerns myself. I just know some teams will. So, I'm kind of just accounting for that with that pick here. Coming up at 17, what is John Gruden going to do with the Las Vegas Raiders?
I think if one of the top tackles fall here, like Darisaw or AVT, that, Raiders are going to jump all over offensive line. You saw them just absolutely gut and fire sale their offensive line this off season. But, if one of the top guys isn't there, maybe they are a candidate to trade back in this draft, take a Tevin Jenkins. Not that he'd be a reach here, but I think that, Gruden can add a ton of versatility to his defense. And this is another reach, though, almost. A lot of people have him a little later in the first round. I love Trevon Moehrig. I mean, he's an
Oh, yeah.
incredible safety. He covers the entire field. He's an athlete, and he can give that defense a bit of diversity that they need, run a few different packages. He can play all over the field. He's just a playmaker out there. The Raiders secondary, not great. Their safeties, not great. Sure, this might be a bit of a reach, but it addresses a big need, and you're getting a guy who is just going to be a good football player. That's why I hate when, you get a safety like this or something. It's like a safety, you don't want to overdraft one or whatever. Shouldn't be too valued. But when you can get a guy like this where he's going to be able to come in and be a football player for your team and give you some, versatility on defense and should contribute day one, I don't see how you pass him when he feels a need like this.
Yeah, he's easily the best safety in the draft, and what is kind of a weaker safety class. So if you can guarantee that you're getting the top guy at that position in the middle of the first round, I think that's a great call for the Raiders. On offense, they're not really hurting. They lost Nelson Aguilar, but I mean, is that a loss? Like, he improved last year, but let's not act like he was like a home run receiver. And I mean, that running back room is kind of bizarre. So I'm interested to see what they'll do on offense. But I know their defense is needing a lot more just based on the name brand value of the guys back there. For Miami, they lost Kyle Van Noy. I think they're going to try to replace him immediately. I don't know how much I think that he can be an immediate replacement, but his draft stock has gone up a lot over the past couple months. He was a projected second-round pick. Now people are thinking he might go in the first. I'm going with Zaven Collins, the linebacker out of Tulsa. And he was actually a 4-year starter at quarterback, which is really, really – I love guys with these kinds of stories. And that's the first thing that he'll be asked about. One of the first things he'll be asked about in his in the draft day press conferences and everything. He's also a linebacker and a safety when he was in Tulsa. So he is one of those versatile players. And Brian Flores, we say all the time, he reminds us of Sean McDermott a little bit. He also loved those versatile defenders, and Zaven Collins is going to fit that mold for him as well. He also has some of those Belichickian, he looks like some of the Belichick linebackers too, and how he plays. And so I think that we're going to see more of these AFC East defenses trying and replicating that, just because, they've beat our asses for so long and they're finally gone. Stick it to them like they stuck it to us in the same exact way. Collins is going to help the Miami Dolphins do that. How do you see the Washington football team going here at pick number 19?
My absolute dream pick of Brandon Beane wanted to trade up a little bit in this draft, or if he fell, which I don't see happening at all, it's JOK. He provides a huge need for a Washington team that needs continuity at, that linebacker safety area. And, what's JOK going to truly be in the NFL? He's one of those safety linebacker hybrids. Who knows? I mean, he kind of might scare them off a bit, because they tried a similar player a few years ago, Su'a Cravens. It didn't work out. But JOK is a monster. He's got sideline-to-sideline speed. He's got athletic prowess. He can read a defense, and he's just a monster. I think he'd be a guy who would be going higher in this draft. Would he not? There wasn't such a stigma against the linebacker safety hybrid. He had the production in college, but he's just a monster. Wherever the ball is, he's going to shoot there like a missile.
Oh my God, if he like Micah Parsons, if he were to somehow be there in the 20s, like, what a dream scenario that would be for the Bills. And I would be sweating it out, just waiting for Brandon Beane to start to get a trade up there. I'm talking slowly and stuttering because I am typing in the next pick for the Chicago Bears, and I want to make sure I don't have a typo in there like I do in my speech most of the time on this show. Very good. Here we are. I have Chicago taking Tevin Jenkins at 20th here. If I'm going to be honest, and this is not me saying this just because Mitchell Trubisky is on the Bills now, but if you watched Bears games last year, like, there wasn't a whole lot the guy could actually do. And Andy Dalton is a lot less mobile and a lot less of an improvisational player than Mitch Trubisky ever was. I think that if they are going to have any amount of success with Andy Dalton out there, like they're marketing him on social media as QB1 with the Red Rocket, they need to protect him better than they protected Mitch Trubisky. Otherwise, they could be a team that's seriously in the bottom 5 teams in the NFL this next year. And that I don't think that's an exaggeration whatsoever. Secure the offensive line, get that going. You saw what David Montgomery could do last year with an offensive line that couldn't run block when Tariq Cohen went out. David Montgomery put on the workhorse role. He can do that. Tariq Cohen can catch passes out of the backfield, but if Andy Dalton's on his back 20% of the time in the game, that's not going to, all the weapons and Allen Robinson there aren't going to do anything. So, Tevin Jenkins, Chicago, 20th overall, going to Indianapolis, 21st overall. What do you got?
I think Indianapolis needs to address their defensive line here. There's a lot of edges in this draft every edge in this draft, there's question marks surrounding. Yes. And there's 2 Miami guys, if either of them are available here or if one's taken earlier, I think they go with either one. I do give a preference to Jalen Phillips, though. Jalen Phillips, even though Indy, another team that should be scared with this pick because of a bad history, they're not great at picking defensive ends. And Jalen Phillips scares me. He's a one-year wonder who had injury history. Saw him 5-star recruit going to UCLA. Tons of injuries. Transfers to Miami. Take Rousseau's number, who opted out, and his position. Replicates just like him. Looks incredible. He's got a bit of a tweener vibe to him, but not so much. I think they should be scared taking somebody so raw because of the one-year wonder thing, and all these defensive ends are, though. So you've got to address the need, and you're going to be taking a lot of shots in the dark. I'm not saying these defensive ends are bad, just lots of question marks around them.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's when people say that this is a weak defensive line class, they're not saying that these players don't have high upside or that they're just bad players. It's just there's a lot more question marks around it, and they have to go to the absolute right situation to answer those question marks in the right way and put them on a path for success. For Tennessee here, a lot of different ways they can go. With Corey Davis being gone, they could use a DeVonta Smith. How about that? DeVonta Smith is still there in this draft at 22. I don't know if we see that happen on draft day, but oh my God, that is one hell of a fall from grace for DeVonta Smith. So we'll see where he ends up going here. That's your tip. I'm not picking Tennessee to pick him. I am picking Tennessee to take Caleb Farley at 22nd overall, who, as we already said, if he didn't opt out, he probably would have been the number 1 consensus cornerback, and he might have been a top 5 pick in this draft this year. If you look at Tennessee's depth chart right now, kind of similar to how I went through a past one. You got Janoris Jenkins, Christian Fulton, who played better than expected last year, but behind them, Kevin Johnson. We know the Kevin Johnson experiment didn't work out in Buffalo. It's not going to work any better in Tennessee. So I like Caleb Farley to go there for the Titans. Can immediately be a starting cornerback. Could be a lockdown corner in his rookie year, like what the Bills got out of Tre'Davious White. So Caleb Farley to the Titans in this scenario makes all the sense in the world to me. Merekat, the Jets are up here. What are they going to do with their second pick in round 1? Are they going to get some help for Zach Wilson? So
I am all over the place right now. I didn't realize we didn't take DeVonta Smith yet. That is, I won't let him fall any further. That's not fair to him. He's going to be a top 15 guy in my opinion. I think he's the second best receiver in this draft. Mm-hmm. Just throw it up there. I'm changing my pick. Sorry, The pick has changed, Jets. They're taking DeVonta Smith. If he falls here, you got to take him. Last year, Denzel Mims looked pretty solid. Jamison Crowder didn't look awful. And then, outside of that, Corey Davis, they signed. He's a good addition. But if you got a talent like Smith here, load it up. Get Zach Wilson as many weapons as you can get. DeVonta Smith, another type of game-breaking athlete, I think. He's, probably got to put a little size on, but still outside of that, I think he's the type of guy that can contribute in a ton of ways, offensive, special teams. Get him to the Jets to help Zach Wilson out if he's available here at 23.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about DeVonta Smith is he is someone who could fall just because of his frame, and that's not necessarily like fair to him. That's just the way he's built, and he was productive doing it. Excuse me. He was productive doing it in college, but there are definitely concerns of how he'll be able to hold up against heavier, stronger, faster competition who, like the picture or like the GIF I think I put up of Austin Watkins pushing a cornerback down yesterday, that would be happening possibly to DeVonta Smith getting pushed down by a cornerback almost every single play. So hopefully he can beef up a little bit and hold his own in the NFL. It'll definitely be more fun if DeVonta Smith goes to a place where he can succeed. And I think with Zach Wilson and with the new coaching staff and the Jets, I think that's a good fit for him. The Pittsburgh pick at 24th overall is going to be as chalky as it gets. Everybody's picking Najee Harris to go to the Steelers. I'm going to pick him too. He's the only true, not only, but he is the most likely workhorse running back to come out of this class. And that's what Pittsburgh needs is a workhorse running back. One that can get through the trenches when an offensive line isn't blocking for you as well as they could. And Najee Harris can do that. Yes, he obviously had great blocking in college, but he is big enough and strong enough to shed those tackles in the backfield and make up for what the Steelers' offensive line is capable of doing right now, for lack of a better way of putting it. When we see what Le'Veon Bell did there, I think, and then what he did after with the Jets, his patient running style, I think he just couldn't find the holes right away, so he had to be patient. I think Najee Harris is going to be he has a better nose for the holes in the offensive line that they're giving him. So I do think that he is a better fit for the Steelers than Travis Etienne. And his college resume obviously speaks for itself. In 4 years, he had 3,800 rushing yards, almost 800 receiving yards, nearly 60 total touchdowns. Are you freaking kidding me? That is absolutely ridiculous for a running back, even one from Bama in the SEC, one as talented as Najee Harris. Yeah, I talked a lot for a chalky pick, but I really think that is I think that's the no-brainer here. And we are halfway through this mock draft now. So before we move on with pick number 25, I am going to remind you guys we are also sponsored, in addition to Amherst Ale House, by MANSCAPED. The flowers are blooming, the grass is growing, and it is time to chop the weeds. And thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped, you can trim safely and efficiently. We're talking about their ball trimmers, the lawnmower 3.0. I'm a Manscaped guy. I know Merekat's a Manscaped guy. They are the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming, and they have an exclusive audience for you guys. Use promo code TRAINWRECK, get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Join the other 2 million men who trust Manscaped. They are here to make sure you are trimmed and smelling nice. After all, it is time for some spring cleaning. Again, that's promo code TRAINWRECK, 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. It is scrolling on the bottom of the screen there, so you guys never forget it. All right, Merekat, Jacksonville coming up with their second pick in the first round, 25th overall. They almost got a twofer with Trevor Lawrence and DeVonta Smith. That would have been something. But who are they going to take here with their second pick in the first?
I think Jacksonville, if they had Trevor Lawrence, they have a pretty solid offense around him. You saw James Robinson look awesome last year. Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark Jr., a super underrated guy. They signed Marvin Jones, Colin Johnson. That offense is pretty set. They might be able to look at offensive line, but I think you go defense here if you want to have a huge year right off the bat with Lawrence. And they have a huge weakness at defensive tackle, so I think they go with the big man out of Bama, Christian Barmore. You look at the depth right now, it's Roy Robertson, Harrison, Taven, Bryan. It's not too inspiring, and you can take a nice flyer here on Barmore. He's a thick, monstrous dude. I mean, he's a 310-pound 3-tech, and he's strong as hell. This dude is the definition of gap integrity. He was definitely a limited playing time guy, but he's definitely raw because of that. But when he was on the field, he produced. He's quick. He could shed blocks. He's got nice hands. He's the type of guy I see being a solid defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, and for the Jaguars, they are, you hate to say it, but they are set up for success right now with their capital that they have. obviously getting Trevor Lawrence, presumably first overall. If you assure both sides, get leaders on both sides of the football, one on the defense, one on the offense, that can be your leadership core, your young core for years to come if you hit on both picks. I think Christian Barmore, I don't know. I know you corrected yourself. I don't know if I have to correct myself, so I'm just making sure I have my bases covered. He can definitely fit in there and be a good young defensive tackle for the Jaguars, I believe. Staying on the defensive side of the ball for Cleveland, I think we know that the offense can do what it needs to do. But that being said, the defense needs to do what it needs to do. And they just could not get to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs last year, regardless of how bad that offensive line was playing and how immobile Patrick Mahomes was. They need a better way to get to the passer. And what better way to get to the passer than taking Azeez Ojulari, 26th overall. He is debatably, and I say debatably loosely because almost all the top 5 edge rushers in this draft class are debatably the best in the class. But I think Azeez Ojulari is probably the guy I see most often in the top 2. He can align in 2-point or 3-point stances. He's versatile. He's an off-the-ball linebacker, so that's exactly what the Browns need right now. And they do use a lot of like hybrid formations on defense, and I think he fits really well into that. Yes, they did just sign Jadeveon Clowney, but what are we expecting from him in the Cleveland Browns? Like that's someone that the Bills fans are saying, let's get him if we can. You know, that's not a bad signing, but at the same time, you saw that contract. It's super cheap unless he plays his ass off, and then it's suddenly worth $10 million. They obviously, probably based on how that contract is structured, don't think that he's going to be that guy. So Azeez Ojulari provides you some insurance for that, just in case Jadeveon doesn't live up to the full potential of that contract. Going over to kind of another defense-needy team after some key departures in the offseason, Baltimore. Merekat, are you having Baltimore go defense in the first round here?
I don't know if you've seen on the side here where we type in the banners. I've changed this pick 5 times. So you've been talking. I'm going back and forth. I think the Ravens do need a receiver, even after they signed Sammy Watkins, and Rashad Bateman being here is a sexy pick for them. But you just brought it up. They need defense. They need an edge. Jason Owe, a guy a lot of people like to follow the Bills and possibly be a pick there. I think he's a really good D end. He's not a D end. I see him as just a pure rush linebacker in the NFL. Maybe even a situational guy, which is why he should fall. People are a little bit down on his production. But he really wasn't unproductive. He just kind of left a lot on the table.
Yeah.
Huge upside, though. Like, this is a guy, he reminds you like the Bruce Irvins, a faster Aldon Smith. Yes. He's a great rush linebacker, and the Ravens need to replace a lot of sacks after losing Judon and Ngakoue this offseason.
Yeah, when Kevin and I did the live mock draft with Mookie Hawkins, he was saying the entire time that he wanted Jason Owe to fall to the Bills. He's so fast for how big he is. It's kind of unfair. And if you can, hone that in a little bit, he can be an elite pass rusher at the next level. So I hate that he goes to Baltimore, but damn, he's going to be a fun guy to watch develop. Someone who I don't think is going to be a fun guy to watch develop, but I think it's just a position of need here for the New Orleans Saints. And it's amazing that he fell to 28th overall. It's possible he does fall this far in the real draft in just over 1 week. It's hard to believe that we're only just over a week away until the NFL draft. But I have New Orleans going with Mac Jones here, 28th overall. It's not sexy. He probably has the lowest overall ceiling of any of the potential first round quarterbacks. And I don't personally, if I was the Bills this year, I would just be hoping that they didn't draft Mac Jones. Now, I was also hoping, like most people, that they didn't draft Josh Allen. So I could be wrong about this too. But it's just, his upside seems limited, but New Orleans needs a future quarterback, and Mac Jones falling to 28th. It's kind of a dream come true. It really is. I could see them going wide receiver here because you saw what happened when Michael Thomas was unavailable last year. So Rashad Bateman being out there and then passing on him is interesting. Now that I'm seeing that, for my own eyes for the first time. But, Saints going quarterback, it's not a shock by any means. And when Drew Brees was still there, people thought that he'd be a good person for Mac Jones to learn from based on their abilities. So, maybe Sean Payton can get something similar out of him.
Yeah, I think a quarterback slips past, like Chicago, then he's 100% going to be there. For Jones, not quarterback.
Yeah.
He's just he's like, you think of a quarterback, you think of like someone who looks like Mac Jones. I don't know.
He could
He's
be a
a
quarterback in a Disney original movie. That's what.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then so Green Bay here, you just brought him up. I think they go with Bateman if he's available. I like Terrace Marshall Jr. too, is maybe even a better fit than Bateman, but the talent with Bateman is here. Best player available, best receiver available. Alan Lazard looked good last year when he was healthy. MVS, you know what you're getting out of him. And Devontae Adams is an absolute monster, but he's starting to see triple teams. He needs somebody opposite of him to take at least a little bit of heat off of him. And Rashad Bateman's that type of guy. Aaron Rodgers is a pinpoint passer, but he likes guys who can work with him on routes and stuff. Bateman can do that. Bateman's got pro-ready hands, a great catch radius. He might get a little bit, too crowded in the NFL from corners, like more physical guys, but that's something you can kind of learn, work past, but might have a little bit of trouble as a rookie adjusting, but I don't see a better quarterback to help him reach his potential than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about what Aaron Rodgers has meant for the Packers in action this offseason, at the very least. I think that's a way to put it. And basically, if he would be willing to restructure his contract, they'd be willing to go out and pay up for a premier weapon, offensive line, running back even, possibly, I don't know. Just they would be more willing to invest around Aaron Rodgers if he was willing to, go that extra mile for them as well. So wide receiver in the first round makes all the sense in the world for me for the Packers. If they don't go wide receiver or offensive tackle, I'll be genuinely shocked. I'll be really, really shocked. Now we're in here for the Bills at 30th overall. So this, as I said at the beginning of the show, Merekat and I are kind of deliberate on a little bit. And as we look at the guys who are here at the top of the board, Joe Tryon is someone who has definitely climbed the draft ranks over the past maybe couple of weeks or so. Alex Leatherwood from Alabama is offensive tackle that could be at need. And obviously the sexy pick that everyone wants, Travis Etienne. And I think most notably otherwise, Eric Stokes, cornerback out of Georgia. So Merekat, out of those names, are there two or maybe somebody else that you're focusing on for the Bills here at 30?
Right now, if this is the board when the Bills are up, we didn't have him go yet, correct? No, we didn't. It would have to be Gregor Rousseau out of Miami, I think. He's not as ranked highly by the Draft Network, but I think this is a guy who's not going to make it out of the first round, even after opting out last year. He was an absolute monster in 2019. He did everything. He's an absolute force off the edge. He got a lot of production, though, playing like a zero tech in college, even though he's an edge guy. So he kind of outworked some lesser athletes, which you won't get at the pro level. But he can be a guy for the Bills, potential Jerry Hughes replacement. Edge is a sexy pick. I think with this current board, it would be GR, but I don't hate Jamon Davis. Another thing, people are totally out on linebacker, it seems like, unless one of the top guys falls after re-signing Milano. But I think the Bills can definitely shore up and add a third really talented linebacker. No offense to, AJ Klein or anybody, but another prospect I really like. See some shades of legend of Kiko Alonso with him, honestly. But in this spot with this board, I'm going with GR.
Yeah, I see. Like when I first started doing mock drafts, and I think if you are like us and you do too many mock drafts on the Draft Network's mock draft machine, it's a fantastic tool. It really lets you get to know the prospects, but also it is written, it's coded. So there are things that are kind of written into happen. And one of the things that are written into happening is it falling mostly according to the Draft Network's rank, how they predict it to go based on how they've written it up. And based on that, Gregor Rousseau, he's falling into the second round, and I kind of align with Merekat that I don't see him getting out of the first. Could it be a reach? Yes. Could he also end up being the best edge rusher in this draft class? I think there's a better chance that draft pick works out than it doesn't work out. So Merekat, before we lock in the pick with Gregor Rousseau, because I'm pretty much almost there, I think you've convinced me. Why him over someone like Eric Stokes, the cornerback?
I don't think the value's there with Stokes. Bean's not going to overdraft a guy if he wants him. I don't think. I don't know what Bean thinks though. I'll put this out there right now. Whatever the Bills do at 30, I trust wholeheartedly whatever they do because it's Brandon Bean. He's proven it to us. He can handle it and do everything we need him to do in this draft. I see the Bills as, if this is the board though, they can definitely trade back, and that's something not even far trading back, trade into the mid-30s there and hopefully get a shot at Stokes or, a little further back and more corners who Bills people love. We won't bring up that guy from Cuse because you heard enough about him from everybody. But I think, GR, you brought it up too. I think he is definitely what I see is going to be the safest thing as a good NFL edge rusher in a 4-3 defense in this draft. And, a lot of players are going to be suffering from missing out in 2020. And like I said, he played that zero tech a lot, which is weird, but he has the body, he has the size, he has the skill set to develop into something. And that's why I don't mind edge here, because Jerry Hughes is still going to be a fine starter this year. He had a great year last year, but he is aging. He's showing bits of signs of age. You got a few guys right now up like Addison and such, and you got AJ Epinesa, who you saw what we did with him. We eased him into that defense last year. I can see us doing the same exact thing this year. Could it be a running back? Could it be ETN? I don't know. I really don't think so. I really, really don't think so. But like I said, in Bean we trust.
In Bean we trust, and here we have Bean taking Gregor Rousseau. I really, really thought that he would be a consensus first rounder, and I don't really get why he's fallen out of it or why he maybe has struggled to make the leap up into it. He does lack a little bit of like the mechanics and technical side of being a pass rusher, but if we're talking about teaching mechanics to a prospect or a young player, I wrote about it in the article I put up earlier about Dio Adingbo. What better locker room culture coaching staff for people to learn mechanics from than, oh man, I'm seeing it now. I'm just seeing these comments from Kevin. Travis Etienne, K, thanks. Wake, don't fail me. Etienne, no! Sorry, Kevin. We will get your 2 cents in here. And point out, the production wasn't exactly there for Gregor Rousseau. But I do think that he won't make it out of the first round. So I do like that the Bills will be the ones to get their hands on him here. Merekat, you are the guy up for the Kansas City Chiefs as we round out this mock draft. What do you think they're going to do? Is it what everybody thinks they should do?
I think that the Chiefs are going to be a candidate to move up in this draft and maybe look to, if it's Tevin Jenkins or somebody, an AVT, any of those guys there saw maybe slip into the late teens, early 20s, that they're going to be looking to move up and address that. And I think that they still can do that at 31. Add Alex Leatherwood. That offensive line needs help. You saw it in the Super Bowl. And you got to protect your $450 million man. You just flat out have to. Leatherwood, not my favorite prospect in this draft, but he's a big dude, a starter at Alabama, an offensive tackle. He's got a great skill set. He's got your ideal body, frame, physique, and he's an athlete. He's a quick athlete, which you want in today's NFL tackles. He's just a guy, he struggles to really generate a ton of power. He's not the most physical. Like, you're not going to see him contribute a ton in like the run game. But as a guy who's quick on his feet, can keep edge defenders away from Patrick Mahomes, it's a good value and it's a good pick here. Fills the need for the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. If they don't take best offensive tackle or best offensive guard available, preferably tackle for the Chiefs, that's a big failure. And so I don't expect them to do that. They're a well-run organization that seems to have their priorities in check. They kind of won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. So I think we can put faith that the Chiefs will do the right thing for their fans. And I think Tampa Bay is going to do what, people are talking about the Bills doing, and that's just taking this pick as a luxury pick, You don't have a whole lot of holes on your roster. They're returning every starter from a Super Bowl winning team, the first time that's ever been done in NFL history. But Antonio Brown technically isn't back yet. So I do like them to add a receiver at the end here. They might have been hoping Rashad Bateman might fall to them, but I think Elijah Moore might just be a better fit. He's very similar to Chris Godwin. So if you have those two on the field at the same time, you don't know who's going to be inside, who's going to be outside, and then you also have Mike Evans to worry about. He's someone that I think can come into the league and immediately make a name for himself as, he could be one of the best young rookie wide receivers in the draft. Or in the league next year. And I don't think that's a stretch by any means, especially if he goes to the right situation, like going to Tampa Bay. So I think I really, really do like him going there. And we'll take a look at how we had this all shake out. I know Kevin Masseri, my usual co-host, is pretty disappointed that we didn't get Etienne to the Bills. I don't think running back's as big of a need as a lot of people do. Merekat, before we go through our mock draft, where do you see running back as a need for the Bills? Do you think it's like a must add in the draft, or if it's the best player available and there's a running back in the top few, you take a shot on him?
I just don't see us. I don't see us diverting our value towards running back early on in this draft. I don't really see it being a need at all. If there's a guy later in the draft who's exciting, maybe a big speed threat, a third down guy to compete with Matt Breida for that spot, sure. Yeah. But I don't hate Zach Moss. It's just everyone's given up on him. Just Zach. It's like he doesn't even exist, and everybody thinks Devin Singletary sucks because he wasn't as good last year as he was as a rookie. But when you do a deep dive into those numbers, we won't do that right now. Just like yards before contact and stuff like that, the numbers just weren't there for Singletary and Moss to be consistently successful in our offense, which they really didn't need to be in our offense. Exactly. You saw the Chiefs do the same thing. Yeah, they have their games there, Edwards-Helaire and stuff, and they'll bounce between backs in different situations. It's nice to have. Just because you got two good running backs doesn't mean one has to be better than the other. One has to be good, one bad, or both are bad because one's not good enough. I hate that type of stigma with the running back. I'm perfectly fine heading into the 2021 season with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary as our 1 and 2. And I am perfectly fine with Matt Breida being our third guy. I don't hate him. I don't think it's a huge role he's going to be filling or anything like that, but like I said, he could be a third down back, a bit of a receiver. Who knows where he can contribute? You see what Dable's done before with guys who are just athletes, like in Isaiah McKenzie, and so Matt Breida kind of gets me a little bit excited like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think there's probably a 30% chance that Matt Breida ends up being the number one back, but also I think that, that's still that's not even a third. So there's still more likely that Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are the number one back to me. But, it's kind of an open competition. And I think they have the skills for the running back room to be successful. But it's not just are the running backs producing. It's the offensive line. It's the scheming. It's the run scheming. Our offensive line, none of the guys had ever blocked in a wide zone scheme before. Like ever. Like Mitch Morse came from Kansas City, and so that's like, that he did. But everyone else, like in Oklahoma, that wasn't super popular for Cody Ford. All these guys had never been used to it before. Down in Carolina for Darrell Williams, so it could be a bit of a learning curve. So I think the running game, even with just the addition of Matt Breida, is going to improve efficiency wise. We don't need them to run for thousands of yards. We just need them to get the job done and not drop passes out of the backfield at Devin Singletary. Getting through the mock draft here, the top 10 seems pretty typical. We already went through that. Going forward, we had the Giants taking Kwity Paye at edge rusher. Philadelphia Eagles get Jalen Hurts, a receiver, and Jalen Waddle. I won't read them all there because everybody can. But Merekat, of all these picks here, do you think one sticks out as a good value or a good fit between 11 and 20?
I like that Kwity Paye pick. I like the Eagles going with Waddle, although I'm mad at myself for letting DeVonta Smith fall so far in this draft. I think he definitely goes in the 10 to,
Probably.
16-ish range, maybe 7. If he's there for the Raiders, let's be real, they're going to be drooling to add that speed. But I think Rousseau with the Vikings is a great fit. I think AVT, if he falls there, is another fantastic fit. They're just a lineman for them between Rousseau or AVT. Both they should have a shot at either one of them there, and I think either is a fantastic fit. And thinking of Micah Parsons and the Patriots defense just terrifies me. I'm sorry for doing that.
Yeah, him and Kyle Van Noy. Van Noy's back there now, so that could be a lethal duo in the linebackers for the Patriots. And then moving into the last parts of the draft here, Colts taking Jalen Phillips at edge rusher, Tennessee Titans getting possibly their lockdown corner in Caleb Farley, DeVonta Smith to the Jets to pair him with Zach Wilson right off the bat. Really crowded receiver room there, but that's absolutely the right pick because it's crowded with just a bunch of guys like Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, who had a good rookie year, but still relatively unproven. Brashad Perriman, what the hell is he? And Corey Davis, who's a good 1B receiver. He and DeVonta Smith could actually be a problem if Zach Wilson is productive. Najee Harris, and that's chalk. Christian Barmore, and that seems like pretty much chalk. Azeez Ojulari seems like chalk. A lot of chalk here, but Mac Jones falling to the Saints. Is that shocking to you? Any shocks between 21 and 32?
Mac Jones falling, like I've said, I think Mac Jones is more definitely the second round talent, but value from a quarterback is going to bring that, and the Saints might be looking to make that move because you see Taysom Hill gets this big shiny deal, but when you really break it down, he's replaceable after this season without being a huge cap hit or anything like that. So why not bring in a Mac Jones, sit behind Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston for a year? I mean, I could see it happening. That would be a surprise. I think one thing, though, I think Packers getting a receiver there is going to be chalk. I see a lot of people having them all over the place with what they're projected to get. Aaron Rodgers is amazing, came off a phenomenal season, but age catches up to everybody at some point. It's going to start creeping up on him, and the Packers are always on that precipice of being a championship team, so really start to get that offense going. You can't trust Marquise Valdes-Scantling to be your number 2 receiver if Lazard goes down again consistently. I mean, you saw what they did with Tanya, and they got him integrated to that offense. He was a great addition. Devontae Adams is an absolute monster, and I like Lazard, but if you throw in a Terrace Marshall or Rashad Bateman, if he's there, I love the Packers at a receiver in this draft.
Yeah, hate it for us possibly facing them in the Super Bowl, but love it for all the primetime games they're going to get. Make for a lot of fun offensive firepower games in primetime. And, Tampa Bay Buccaneers adding a receiver makes them even more scary than they already were. And the Kansas City Chiefs adding that offensive tackle, Alex Leatherwood, seems like just obviously the right idea for them right now, especially given what everybody saw happen in the playoffs. But that is going to do it for our live first round mock draft here. Merekat, it was a blast. I really hope that you will be able to join Kevin and I in the future. It was absolutely spectacular. Can't wait to be doing Trainwreck Fantasy with you soon after the draft. Football. Definitely miss getting your insight there. Remind everyone of the mock draft you were working on and when they'll be able to read it.
I'm going to drop tomorrow morning, probably 9 a.m. Be on the watch. It's going to drop on Trainwreck Sports, so I'm sure you'll see it on your timelines if you're a Trainwreck follower. Hope you enjoy it. Like I said, it's just an NFL mock. It's not just straight Bills. We are going to have one of those dropping this weekend. I'm going to be doing all 7 rounds for just the Bills of what I think they can do. Certain options when you get later in the draft, and it's hard to project just a single player. And we're going to have contributors from Trainwreck. I know Wake's going to contribute. We got Stevie. A few other guys are going to give their favorite picks for the Bills as well. So that'll be a nice little thing for you guys. We're going to be pumping out the draft content. There's a lot of guys on here who are great too on Twitter. Shout out to guys like at Cover One and stuff. Everyone's killing it. Shout out to the Bills content creators.
First exclusive.
Hats off to you. Yeah, all of you guys, because draft season's a lot. You stay up late working on this stuff. You don't want to be watching film in the middle of a day when you're doing actual work. And
that's so you're staying up late.
Exactly. So just everyone in draft season. Shout out to you guys. It's exciting. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. Let's be real. Nobody ever hits a draft
Right?
completely right or hits everything on the head. There's going to be a lot of parody and stuff. So let's get into it and let's get ready, folks.
Yep. Shout out to everyone that Merekat mentioned. Shout out to the Crossing Swords guys. They're going to be going live soon for Sabres pregame show, looking to upset Keith Taylor Hall, and the Boston Bruins. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And we'll see if we can get a little more, some Bjork magic tonight against his former team. We should have another episode of the Crowd Assist podcast later this week, so stay tuned for a show announcement. But until then, I have been Wake. He has been Merekat, and that is it for us today.
Yeah. Bills Mafia. Don Brown.